Hey, what's up? I'm Benjamin Gottlieb, and you are listening to Joe Ruggiero Inspired, Joe Ruggiero's podcast. I'm his producer, and today we're going to talk about Joe's intersection with Hollywood, the people that he's met throughout his career, and they are really interesting characters. And Joe, thank you so much for doing this for myself and also for your audience.
Well, it's been interesting because each person I meet, I learn something from. And let's begin with Phyllis Diller. Phyllis Diller, the great comedian who started late in life. She was 37. As a matter of fact, I think she launched her career on the Groucho Marx show.
Okay.
And I think it's on YouTube. So any of you who want to check it out, it's kind of interesting.
For you youngins, you can check it out on YouTube, right? YouTube thing. But she was known kind of for her self-deprecating humor, right?
Well, you know, she was an outrageous gear. She wore those go-go boots and what have you. But she was really a classy lady. She lived in Brentwood in a great house. She inherited or purchased, I guess, the Merriweather Post China collection. So it was all this beautiful spode and elegant china that she would entertain with. And she also fashioned herself as a good cook. And I remember she came up with a sort of Tex-Mex lasagna, which she called Mexicali hot stuff party din din, which, you know, is just typical Phyllis
As
Diller.
one would.
Right.
As one would, right.
And it was delicious, too. But the one thing that really impressed me is I watched a spot that she did on the Good Morning America show, and she mentioned my name. And I
Really?
had done a centerpiece for her, creating this edible centerpiece out of vegetables. She was really impressed by it. And, you know, she took note of these creative things. And she was really down to earth, loved her children, loved to entertain. She had a room that she called the Bob Hope Suite, and it had a big portrait of Bob Hope. But he was very good to her career. And I think people help people. And not to be trite, but people need people. And I think I've learned a lot from people who are celebrities.
There is this, it appears in the interviews we've done on the show, this really interesting intersection between Hollywood and design, right? I mean, what is it about the Hollywood glitterati, so to speak, that they're so attracted to folks who have the acumen of design like you do?
Well, they have an aura about them, and I can see that aura. I think a celebrity gets used to the trappings of being a celebrity, always being hounded, photographs, what have you, performing. And I can remember my dad sitting me down saying, no performing, because I used to love to be in shows, and I love to sing, do the sets, costumes, the whole 9 yards. And he said, it's not going to take you anywhere. And I think back now, and I think he was right, but I did do a form of performing, which is this, my podcast, and obviously on HGTV and This Old House. So I have a guest today that has following me for 30 years.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Because usually these attractive girls come into me if I make a personal appearance and say, my grandmother loves you,
Right.
or something like that. Shows my age. But there's something about helping people, inspiring people, and that's why I call this show Inspired, because, like yourself, people inspire me, and I like to share that.
Does it take a certain level, would you say, of wealth accumulation, or what is it that allows these Hollywood actors and actresses to really get attached to or understand the virtues of good design in their homes, or, like you mentioned, of that dinner plate that you made?
Well, they can afford to hire people, and I think that that's important. But I think in some cases, there's a genuine love. I mean, Harrison Ford was a contractor or a carpenter before he became a celebrity. And many people have had that experience. But I think they like nice surroundings. And if they can't do it themselves, they'll hire somebody. And that's why we've broadened our horizons with this show, because I think people are interested in not only design, but all the things that go with it, living a better life. And I think today we're living longer. And
Certainly true.
We can afford to, look at what has brought us to this point.
Someone you've worked with who is well known to just about anybody who listens to any sort of media is Oprah. Tell us a little bit about Oprah and what you were able to do with her, what your interactions were with her.
Well, I go way back with Oprah. She isn't a client, although she wanted me to work on her friend Carol's house. And I said, Oprah, I have done very few personal
Homes, right?
homes, but I like to design product for manufacturers. And that's where my success has been. But I met her on a book tour. I did a book called Found Objects back in the 70s. And she was my first stop. And she was doing a show called People Are Talking in Baltimore. She had a co-host. And I came home and I said to my wife, this woman's going places. And she said, well, why? I said, because she listens. She's genuinely interested in what you have to say. And that friendship went on. She invited me back to Chicago when she had her own show a couple of times. And she understood the play that I had with Found Objects.
Which was what? What was the play?
Well, people throw away things that could be decorative. Tin cans or, paper products that could be framed. Paper bags can be framed. And I just wanted to make it clear that throwaways, I think the French call it objet trouvé, can be decorative. And that's what that book was about. And she was very interested in it, that I had the nerve to stand up for it. I think she became a believer, sort of. But I've always been very impressed by her because I think she runs a business, she signs all the checks. And when I started my podcasts, she does interviews.
Sure.
And way she conducts her interviews is very, very interesting.
You say the way that she does her interviews is very interesting. Is it just her ability to deeply listen, or are there other things about her interview style that you really are attracted to?
Well, I think she has a knack. She is a vehicle for many of us to be inspired. And I think she has a knack of asking questions that you may be interested in asking a particular person. I know she caused a big stir when she interviewed Harry and Meghan, but I think she got right to the matter. And
You're talking about Prince Harry and his wife. Yeah.
And I'm not sure that she believed them, but she was very respectful, which I give her credit for.
So it's not just folks like Oprah. There are other people in your, let's call it, panoply of Hollywood stars and people in design all across myriad different industries. One of which, Hubert de Givenchy, right, is someone that you've rubbed shoulders with many times. I mean, tell us a little bit about what that interaction was like and how your career and his intersected, or life intersected.
Well, a friend of mine was conducting a benefit, and he was doing a retrospective because he's designed a lot of clothes for a lot of famous people.
Sure, of course.
Duchess of Windsor, Elizabeth Taylor, I mean, it goes on and on. And of course, Audrey Hepburn. And he tells me the story that his administrative assistant came into his office and said, Miss Hepburn is here. And he went out thinking it was Katharine Hepburn. And as he says, this little waif comes in, Audrey Hepburn, just starting her career. And he saw the potential of reshaping her life
Wow.
through clothing. And I had the pleasure of working with him when I was at West Point Pepperell. And in those days, the 70s and 80s, they were doing bedding collections. And he was doing a bedding collection. So we went to his house in the Loire Valley to photograph that collection. And I was just so impressed by his, I keep going back to the word Christ-like, because he had a spiritual feeling about him. And very down to earth, very not what you would think a high-end designer would be. But he befriended me, and we had a nice conversation. I had a wall in my...
Where was this? Where did you...
In New York. I had a wall in my office with pictures from magazines that just inspired me. And he was fascinated by that because he appreciated it.
Well, this is New York, so he must have, and correct me if I'm wrong, he must have also, was he designing for Jackie Kennedy also? Was that?
I think he did some things for her.
Yeah.
But
So it's around the same time with...
I think she got some backlash.
Okay.
But she, or he, designed the outfit that she wore when they met de Gaulle. And she wrote him a note. Dear Mr. Givenchy, thank you for the way you made my dress. You made me look like a painting. And she quoted some famous French painting. Wow. And he was very touched by that. And it was beautifully designed with floral only on the bodice and it was handwork. So she really looked stunning.
Is this someone, I mean, we're talking about Givenchy as someone that is, I mean, synonymous with the ideals of good fashion, right? I mean, known for fragrances and all sorts of things. I mean, is this someone you looked up to, or what was the, were you peers? What was the relationship with him?
I think I looked up to him. He was a magical guy, and he did many movies with Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Charade. And, he really knew her personality. And the way he designed these outfits, very sculptural hats, and really changed her career trajectory. And I was fascinated by him. And he entertained us at his home, myself and my crew. And he had a great couple there. And Le Janget was the name of the villa or chateau. And it was scaled down so you could understand it. I think it only had 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms.
Wow.
Tops.
Okay.
But the grounds were spectacular. And Bunny Mellon, who designed the White House Rose Garden, she designed a garden that was a replica of the vegetable garden at Mount Vernon. And it looked sort of out of place because you see this very traditional garden in the midst of this gorgeous villa. And it worked somehow, and he was very respectful of it.
When you're around someone like that, who you clearly have so much admiration for, who's so well respected in his field, how do you interact with somebody like that? I mean, you've had the privilege, the pleasure of being around some incredible people, spending time with them, breaking bread with them. How do you feel comfortable in those moments?
RESPECT. I mean, I respect them, and I'm fascinated by what they have to say and the advice they give me. And after spending time with him, I thought, I could do that. I could design, and I could put together a collection, not fashion. I've always dreamed of doing a fashion collection, and I did do a fashion collection out of Sombrella fabrics. But it was just to demonstrate the wearability and the drapeability of Sombrella, and also the patterns that also aligned themselves with fashion patterns. So that was really fun. And I put in a fashion show at the Dallas Mart. And,
so hold on a second. Are you saying that he was one of the individuals who inspired you to do what you're doing?
Absolutely.
Well, then how did you, I guess the next logical question for anyone who's listening, who's maybe got an idea or looking to be inspired by some of the folks that they respect, How did you take that inspiration into action? Because that's a difficult step to take.
I just tucked it in the back of my brain. These things surface now. I'm in my reflection period of life. And I think to myself of the hurdles that I've had to jump to do what I wanted to do. And it's very interesting because you just take this advice and you tuck it in, and you don't know when you're going to use it. But 9 times out of 10, you use it. And I say that to my kids all the time. You may not enjoy calculus, you may not enjoy the courses you're taking in college, but there'll come a time when you'll use it.
Huh.
I don't know.
Tuck it away and use it. I mean, that's the best advice I've heard so far, right? I mean, we're collecting pieces of not just other people, but what we experience, and we apply that to what we do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't know what opportunities might present themselves. Case in point, with yourself. You're launching a new career, and that's wonderful. And it ain't going to be easy.
Right.
But you have the wherewithal to succeed. And I know this interview isn't about you.
I was going to say, now it's becoming a therapy session for me. But I mean, I charge by the hour, Joe. Okay, so well, I really appreciate that, and I think it's incredible how you have been able to take these really special people that you've met, you've rubbed shoulders with, you've broken bread with throughout your career, and use them as either inspiration or worked with them. Givenchy is not the only fashion icon that you've worked with or interacted with. Bill Blass as well, right? Bill Blass, well known as a fashion designer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of known for pioneering that relaxed kind of American sportswear look. Tell me about your experiences with Bill.
Well, he is a unique guy. Once again, very down to earth. Once again, very much giving pieces of advice. But I was a long fan of his because I felt I related to his fashions. And he used to have a menswear shop in Bonwood Teller. And I used to go in there when I could piece a couple of bucks together and buy a jacket or two. And he really preceded Ralph Lauren, if I could say that. But he had a real knack for understanding menswear, and he extended that to women's fashion. But I always thought his strong point was menswear, the classics. And I have a granddaughter that's going to school now for fashion.
For fashion, that's right.
And I keep telling her, think of the classics, because those are the things that are wearable. We've just lost one big fashion icon, and that's Armani. And I think
that was just this week.
Right. And Armani was very good in terms of sculptural details, but he was always head and shoulders above everyone else because he had a unique vision. And I respected that vision.
It's interesting that you kind of put them in the same breath. I mean, they're kind of from the same era, so to speak, right? I mean, or not?
Well, Bill did a collection for Springs of bedding, and it was very, very successful. And he understood that. It's fashion for the bed.
Right.
And today it doesn't really exist,
No.
but I guess people have taken it over in different directions. But it was a way of dressing the bed that made a statement for your bedroom. And once you had that collection, you would build from that collection. But many people used sheets for drapery, for shower curtains, for table rounds. And I can remember we had a luncheon in New York for the Home Furnishings Council, and this one lady would donate table skirts to the luncheon, and there must have been 50 tables. And
table skirts, so not like
that were made of sheets.
Okay, wow.
And it was a great way of showing the collection, I thought. Very, very clever.
That is clever. And speaking of clever, not to be so on the nose, You've had a few run-ins with Anna Wintour as well.
Yes.
And speaking of which, if you folks don't know, former editor of Vogue,
Right.
Also, The Devil Wears Prada. I think Meryl Streep
Was inspired by her.
Certainly was, and Anne Hathaway's in that film as well. Is she as intense as portrayed in that film?
Not intense. She has a vision. I had a luncheon with her when she was appointed the editor of HG, which was House and Garden magazine. And she tried to explain her vision for the magazine, which was a little bit of fashion, a little bit of interiors. And it was very interesting the way she went about explaining it to me, because I was a big advertiser at the time.
Well, yeah, tell me how she went about it.
For Martex. But she was trying to explain that the way you dress yourself is very similar to the way you dress your home. And if you're looking for a color scheme, go to your closet and see what you're wearing, what colors pop up.
Had you heard that before?
No, but I'm afraid to say that it would be gray and beige and black in my closet. But I don't know. I mean, that's the way I was. But she also made a speech at Cambridge in England. And she said, today, you have to be a master of all divisions. That the days of this group or that department and this department are gone because of the efficiency of being a Renaissance person. And that many of the things that you need to do for marketing, layout or speaking, public speaking, all of that has to be combined in yourself. And I thought to myself, well, what about the people that can't do it? Then she said, you should purchase the very best to help you. And I thought that that was interesting, as a person who likes to do many things by himself. I feel lucky that I can do it.
I was going to say, it sounds like you probably felt seen when she was saying that, right?
She's very smart, and I think it's a vision. I think you have to follow your vision, whatever it is. I mean, I don't know what's going on in your head.
Sure.
But I know you do, and I know that you're going to create something unique and helpful. I just see what you've done for me, and it's terrific.
Well, what about the things that that you want to create, Joe? We're still here. You're still making this program. Your audience is following you as you interview these incredible guests, and we have more coming up this season through the rest of the year. Some of the conversations have been fascinating, spanning all different types of things in your toolkit of interests. What is it when you look ahead and in the context of kind of what's happening with celebrity, these folks you've rubbed shoulders with, where do you think things are going to be moving in terms of design in the design world, and how are the celebrities of today kind of driving that, do you think?
Well, I like to subscribe to the Burger King theory of decorating. Have it your way. And I don't think there's any right way or wrong way. I think you have to surround yourself with those things that please you. And we have had 6 homes throughout the United States. And each one, as a matter of fact, my uncle said, why does Joe always have to buy the dump on the block, Well, I couldn't afford the best place on the block, and I kind of loved changing gardens, and I love to take pride in, picking every piece,
Sure.
every tree, and planting it. I'm not as young as I was, but I used to be able to really dig in with my back.
Into the soil, yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. But I think that if you stick to the classics, and I am not saying that you don't need a professional can sketch out the floor plan, knows the place for each piece of furniture. That's what a good designer has. And I go back to the great designer, Sister Parrish, and she said, you've got to educate your eye. Travel is the best educator. Go to the famous houses of the world. Speak to the famous architects and designers, and try to glean from them what and how they place things. My daughter used to say, when we put a house together, because she worked for me for 8 years, it's as if you're trying to place orphans in a new home. Where will you place them? Where is the right place to have a conversation group? What's the right place for a painting on a wall? What is appropriate? And I think all of that you learn in time.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that actually, and you brought it up, this idea of space. I think how we spend time in our homes has changed so much. And I talk about this actually with my grandfather, who I think the audience knows by now is your good friend.
He's a frustrated architect.
Well, that's a whole other podcast. You probably should have him on the show. Maybe not. But what I would say is, I talk with him a lot about this, and people, you don't just sit and entertain in dining rooms anymore. I mean, when I go over to friends' homes now with open floor plans, we're often in the kitchen, spending time in the kitchen. It's so different from how I think the classic homes were designed. You weren't meant to entertain in a kitchen, right?
No.
So, and that I think that also there's other things happening too, right? I mean, there's this. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but we have, when you're asking your kids or your grandkids, do you want this set of china? They're like, china. What am I going to do with this? What am I entertaining with this china, right? We're going to eat on paper plates outside in the barbecue.
Right.
So, I mean, there's been this kind of shift to a more relaxed form of entertainment. Curious what your thoughts are about that, because I'm sure that has design implications as well.
Well, who makes the decisions in your home? You're married and have a lovely child.
Can I plead the fifth? Which decisions? Design decisions?
Yeah.
My wife.
Huh.
Yeah.
And do you agree always?
Of course. Of course.
Uh-huh.
No, I do. I mean, she's much more. I mean, it's funny. You mentioned earlier in this interview, if you want to look at someone's design aesthetic, look at their closet.
Yeah.
Right? For me, I've never been much of a person for wearing the finest or the nicest. My brother, who works on Broadway, is much more into that. What I actually like to wear are older things, things with sentiment. My father's father, who has an incredible life story, born in Czechoslovakia, survived the Second World War. He was an incredible dresser. Raised my father in Argentina. He has these incredible suits. We have a completely different body type. He was tall and slender. I'm kind of like boxy. They all fit me somehow. I just wore them to a wedding. He's got this really nice British-made suit that I just wore. So I don't really, when it comes to the closet, for me, it's either sentiment or I like to be relaxed.
Well, some people like to go to vintage, like Goodwill.
Sure.
And shop. And I can understand that. I can remember working for a gentleman, and I had to go to a black tie event, and I said, I don't have anything. I don't have black tie. And he said, I have an old jacket that my father used to wear. You're welcome to it. And it was a double-breasted with wide lapels. And it was a smash hit. Everybody came up to me and said, where did you get that? And, it was probably the 30s, I would imagine. So I think that going back to my statement about the classics, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with the classics. And I would encourage people to surround themselves with the things that please them. And maybe get a professional to come in and tweak it a little bit.
Do you think we're going to continue, though, to move away from this idea of the classic home, entertaining in a dining room, having a sitting room or a living room,
waiting for the preacher?
Right, exactly, exactly. Or are we going to have kind of a return to some of this love for classical design that I think you, throughout this program, from what I've known about you, really have an affinity for?
Well, I personally like that. I like small space. I don't like big places. Maybe it's because I could never afford it. But I think that a small space is easier to decorate or design. But I think that we've taken the barriers away. But I've said to my wife, wouldn't it be great to dress for dinner on Friday night? And, even with this country club here that we're speaking from, it would be nice to be able to have candlelight, fresh flowers, maybe wear a jacket. You don't necessarily have to be in black tie, but I think Downton Abbey taught us that there was an era where they did.
Sure.
And it's kind of nice. I love conversation at dinner. I don't like any electronics at dinner. I do like some music, maybe gently playing. I saw a guy the other day play a classical guitar. I was mesmerized by it. And I went up to him and I said, do you ever get arthritis? And he said, no, because of the strings, which are plastic strings.
Yeah, so they're nylon strings, yeah.
They're easier than the, I guess, steel
Yeah.
On your fingers. You don't have to develop calluses or whatever. But it was so nice to have that gentle music of the guitar, the classic guitar. There's that term again, classic. I like classical music too.
Well, Joe, you certainly are a classic, I think. I think anyone who sits here in this chair and is interviewed by you would say the same thing. Before we wrap on this episode, and hopefully you've been enjoying it, this conversation with Joe about all the folks he's rubbed shoulders with throughout his career, in Hollywood in particular, anyone we missed? Any other stories you think we should share that our audience, your audience, might like to hear about?
I'm going to save that for another conversation with you because as I mentioned to you, I want to bring you into the conversation more often. And I would love to hear from my listeners if they approve or they want more of it. We are, thanks to you, broadening our base. We're bringing in faith, we're bringing in divorce, marriage, all of the things that I think are so important to all of us. And I hope that we're getting good grades from our audience. As you say, how are we doing?
Well, that's a great point. If you're listening right now to this program and you've liked this conversation, let us know in the comments section wherever you listen to podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, you name it. We want to hear from you. And also, is there someone Joe should talk to? Let us know in the comment section, and also leave a review. It really makes a difference. Or share this episode with a friend or a loved one or someone who just loves to hear about the classics in Hollywood. Joe Ruggiero and his podcast, Joe Ruggiero Inspired. I'm Benjamin Gottlieb. Joe, always fun. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.